Hey folks, welcome back to the Screen Sermon Podcast. So as I said last time, we forgot to record an outro and an intro to separate part 1 from part 2 when we recorded the 2-part VvV together for Seven Samurai and the Magnificent Seven. So here's your intro for part 2. Inky and I sit down to talk about the technical aspects as well as some intangibles and make our final verdict as to which one of the 2 films we would recommend. And as we stated before, most difficult VvV we've had to do yet. We were very, very happy to watch both of these films, and so trying to separate what's good from what's great, really, because neither one of these films are bad or have bad elements to them, really, was a lot of work for us. So I hope you enjoy part 2 of the episode. Inky and I certainly put a lot of thought into it, and we'll talk to you at the end. All right? Which then takes us to technical. And technical is kind of a broad category. We use it to kind of describe cinematography, the music, and things like that. I'm trying to remember about sound. I guess sound is also technical. So yeah, sound, music, cinematography, lighting, all that kind of jazz.
Are we including?
How did you feel about?
I was going to say, are we including, say, set decoration, design, makeup, or are we separating that?
I think that was what we were previously calling effects.
Okay.
So, makeup, CGI, of course, is not in this. And then, stunts and things like that, I think we were even putting into effects for some reason. I don't know. Because we don't know how to do this exactly. But yeah.
It's a physical effect.
Yeah.
Your
choreography.
You're creating an effect with your body?
So technically...
technically, we're on Technics.
Technically, we're on the Technics. And I will say, I do want to lead off with one thing. I feel like, and I'm just going to throw it out there broad.
Yeah.
About what makes this hard for me.
Yeah.
The cinematography in Seven Samurai is awesome. And it's shot really well.
Yeah.
But there is something about the sound, not the music, mind you, but the sound that is a little lacking for me in Seven Samurai. And I think it's because I grew up an anime kid. And when guys are pulling swords out of sheaths, when I see a katana being drawn, I want to hear that blade singing, know, or when it's slicing into a dude's body, I want to hear the sound that it makes when it hits a guy. They don't do any of that in this movie.
True.
When a sword slices into somebody, it's silent.
You want the opening of a Wu-Tang sample.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I expected to get, and I didn't get it. And so that was a little disappointing. On the flip-flop, there's nothing wrong with the way that Magnificent Seven was shot, but I definitely noticed the cinematography more. And then I read a little bit more about Kurosawa's techniques. He knew that in a lot of action scenes, he was only going to get one shot at it, and so he would set up multiple cameras for one take, and then just cut together from the different vantage points that he had. And so that, in conjunction with also the, telephoto lenses? Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. So that they were kind of able to pull in or pull away, and the camera moves a lot, and you get into the depth of things, and it's shown from different angles, and they provide you with a lot of different diversity in terms of the way that it was shot. Awesome. And that was the first time that Kurosawa had ever done that, and then he continued to do that evidently for the rest of his career. But I haven't seen any other Kurosawa films, but very impressed by the way the film was shot.
Huge amount of preparation as well. He had to, I'm sure because of the fact that he only had single shots for some.
Yeah.
So he built diagrams for the action sequences and really worked them out with the actors as well.
Yeah. You can fire away. I'm still mulling shit over. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. I didn't know if you were going to jump over to Mag 7 a little bit. On this side of it, as far as technical goes, this is the one that even before watching both of these, I really thought Magnificent Seven had that like haymaker,
Mm.
and it still does have a haymaker. It just turned out to not be the only one with that specific haymaker.
Yeah.
And that would be Elmer Bernstein's score. This is one of my favorite scores ever. I was butchering it up top and right before we hit record. But man, that opening, it's like if I had to play Adventure to an alien that didn't understand the concept, I would just play them that opening scene without even the images from the film. Like, this is what it feels like. We're about to hit an adventure here. And as I said, like watching Mag 7 first, I felt that immediately, of course. It's so present to the score. Yeah. Like, it keeps kind of pushing you along, which in other movies can be a little bit annoying. I know it's like score, cinematography, and editing. Like, you hear this off and on where like the best is the type you don't notice. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I don't either. Yeah.
I think that's very specific to a film. And in this case, I think the way Bernstein's score, the way it keeps kind of, it's like your companion, you know? It's like you're riding music when you go on a road trip in that way. And and again, I was pretty sure that would be a little bit of what I was hoping, because I knew this was going to be a pretty close one even going in. A little bit more of a black and white deciding factor. But lo and behold, Fumio Hayasaka came through with a very good score. Yeah. Man, and one of the key differences that I noticed and I loved, because there's a lot more string action in Albert Bernstein's score. Seven Samurai is a lot brassier. And as a former brass player, I appreciate that kind of attention.
Sure.
So in that specific way, I'd still give Bernstein the Duke here, just within this, kind of a subledger within the category. But man, Seven Samurai really came through as well. And this is another one as well. I did not remember it being that present.
Okay.
But especially in those early things, and I think it really helps buoy the early scenes. Those like little moments, kind of transitional moments between scenes, or when we just have people, say, walking to the next thing. It's nice to hear those little like more interstitial kind of notes in the score.
Yeah, the walking down the dirt path song.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's an art to it, turns out. But
sure.
Going to your point, though, on cinematography, really tough pick for me as well. Kurosawa is very known for his compositions, and for very obvious reasons for anyone who's watched this movie. He's also a painter. I don't know how much the influence that has. The biggest Kurosawa fan I know is a painter. So there must be, I guess, some kind of kinship and understanding on that front.
Sure.
That being said, I think that, honestly, John Sturgis and Charles Lang, so director and cinematographer on Magnificent Seven, respectively, man, the way they capture that valley, and also like just the kind of the texture and color they get, even just on people's faces, is pretty spectacular. This was honestly probably the hardest category for me. I'm going to throw it back to you, so I also don't have to make the decision yet.
In a sea of hard categories. I lean into you for music stuff, because music is one that I don't feel like I always capture. But I recognize that both scores were very well, like they were doing it for me in their specific scenes. Like I also remember, I couldn't tell you exactly how it went, obviously, but there was a very like foreboding song or a piece of music that was written for when shit was getting dire in Seven Samurai, and it kept coming back like 4 or 5 different times, and specifically like when Gorobe is killed is one of the last times you hear it, and they're kind of walking with him. They're carrying him on all of those like logs, kind of like a makeshift gurney to carry him out, and it's just this very low, it almost sounds like chanting, and I thought that was very effective. It was like, you see the farmer's plight, kind of thing, and it comes up there, and then you see like this scene that happens where something dark, like I might be misquoting or misrepresenting the film, but like when what's his name? Monzo, when Monzo shaves Shino's head and cuts her hair so that he can try to pass her off as a boy before the nasty samurai get there and stuff like that. Like, it may have been played during that moment when she's like grieving over being, terrified of, by her own father and stuff like that. But it was just this one piece of music that kept coming up during these really foreboding times, and I made a note of that. Like, man, what an effective little piece of stuff they put together there just to kind of indicate to the audience, like, this is sad, like, this sucks, and this is the music that tells you.
I believe the term for that is a dirge.
A dirge, there you go.
Yeah.
Like a funeral dirge, that makes sense.
Yeah. A little more upbeat in this case, but yeah, it's very dirgy. Sure.
And so I just remember that, like, really standing out to me. But yeah, as far as like being on the high road of adventure, like, Magnificent Seven really delivers with some kind of very high energy stuff that it kind of gets you into this quest, that they're all on. And trying to think more about, like, technique. I knew that I had already made up my mind, although, like I said, I think Magnificent Seven was shot well. I think I had already made up my mind that as far as cinematography was concerned, that I wasn't really going to have... Because nothing stood out to me. To your point earlier, I'm jumping all over the place. That whole concept of... like,
you've listened to the short before,
best...
right?
Yeah. The best, cinematography and music and stuff like that is the stuff you don't notice. And I'm with you. Like, I couldn't disagree with it more, because some of my favorite shit in watching a film, specifically for me, is when I notice a shot that I think is just really clever or really well done, or really, like, highlights what it is. Like, this is where my eyes are supposed to go, and the camera helped me get there. Like, those kind of things. And when my eye is able to pick up on those things, I have a good time with that scene. I'm like, man, like, the DP, like, took me on a ride on that one.
Yeah.
And I definitely got some of those from Kurosawa. I don't recall having those moments with Mag 7. And so, like, the cinematography stood out to me with Seven Samurai. It could have been because I had been through Seven Samurai, and Mag 7, is now, I'm watching the same movie, but it's the shorter version. And so I wasn't jiving with it as much. But the sound thing that I was talking about before, like, there's just something about, getting those impactful sounds of, like, the blade slicing across a person's body and things like that. A lot of the time they were just like, I mean, how many bandits got killed when Kikuchio would, like, run up on a dude that got knocked down by a bunch of farmers and then just stab him, like, with the Nodachi real quick?
Yep.
Like, there wasn't as much, these big, grandiose, like, slicing and dicing kind of moments where you would get those cool sounds, but when they did happen, there was no sound. Like, when you get the introductory scene with Kyuzo, and he has that duel, and you're just expecting all those awesome, blade singing sounds and the slicing noises and stuff, and it's just this very quiet scene when he kills this guy, and there's something effective about that too, especially considering his character.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side with Mag 7, you get all the sound effects you could possibly want. There's gunfire all over the place and bullets ricocheting off of solid surfaces. And I also noticed in there, absolutely a sound effect I've heard used in sci-fi films sometimes, with, like, some of those bullet ricochets. It sounds more like a laser gun. And I've absolutely heard it in some older sci-fi movies or something very close to it, and it took me out of the moments a couple of times. I was like, somebody have a ray gun out there?
I wouldn't doubt that maybe the sci-fi films just kind of lifted it from that, because a lot of earlier sci-fi movies were pretty low budget.
Sure.
You ever watch those like movies from, say, like the 50s and early 60s, and you can tell, like, oh, that's just the standard guy falling down a well scream,
like Forbidden Planet or something like that.
I don't know if exactly Forbidden Planet, but not even specifically sci-fi, but just like kind of lower budget ones. You can feel the Ed Wood in those, though.
Yeah.
Where they're like, what's the canned scream? What's the canned gunshot sound? Let's put that in there.
Yeah. Who's that guy? Wilhelm? Yeah, let's get his scream. Yeah. Everybody uses that.
Wilhelm's the best.
So with all that in mind, cinematography just represents such a big piece of my enjoyment of a movie.
Let's be honest here. It's the one element that makes it a film more than the others. I mean, the rest of them help.
That's true.
Cinema is a multifaceted art form, but without moving images, there's no movie.
Right.
Wait a sec.
And so...
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I think that I have to give the point to Seven Samurai just because of how taken I was by the cinematography. But there's so much... It's still so close. But yeah, I think that... And it made up for the fact that I didn't get my, like, Rurouni Kenshin sort of, sound effects and stuff that I would have wanted, but I was willing to overlook it.
I'm glad you brought up the sound. I don't think I would have noticed that, honestly. But as you were talking about it, I do remember that, especially in the final fight.
Yeah.
When Mifune is going around just like murking folk, like you don't get much of a sense of like what it feels like. Yeah. Sometimes you get like a little bit of a cry, and of course you get the fall, like from the horse or what have you. Offhand, just a quick thing I love though too is where they have that stump of swords.
Yeah.
This way, if you lose a sword, you just go back, grab another one.
And that's what he said too, when he's just shoving them in there.
Yeah.
And he was like, I can't kill, what did he say? Like, I can't kill 7 bandits with this sword, like this one. And he does, he inevitably ends up breaking his Nodachi.
Yep. That's something else I learned from history shows too. It's like quite often a great quartermaster makes for a big asset in a battle.
Yeah.
If you can get to your arrows or swords that much quicker and fire them or slice them that much more efficiently, makes for a lot.
Absolutely.
I'm killing a lot of time here because I really don't want to make a decision. I think I would agree with you. I think visually, and again, mostly compositionally, I would probably give a small edge because I think that the team on Mag 7 did a hell of a job.
Yes.
Man, there's like honestly so much of it. It feels like it could almost be like a John Ford movie. That's how much I love the way they shoot that valley and that village. Small edge though on that to Seven Samurai. I think that maybe that Kurosawa, the painter's eye, I think he gets a little bit more of the mise-en-scene of it. I'm also very partial to black and white. What really kills it though for me, and again, it's the most present in my mind, is that final fight and the rain. Just dudes going balls out. Like everybody knows this is the last thing. Another thing I didn't mention, this is just an overall thing that I like about both these movies, is just the scale. It's not the end of the world, but it's the end of potentially everything that these characters know. Yeah. There may not be what they know after tomorrow. So I do love that about both. Can I tie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like like there's no hard and fast rule that we have to declare a winner in specific anything or overall. I don't feel like there's no, because then that affords people the opportunity, those that do watch the show and care and stuff like that, to be like, oh, they liked both of them, I guess I should watch both of them, that kind of thing. So
I don't mean overall. Feel like I just think this category is too hard for me to choose.
Yeah, I get it.
I find them
so
both
it's like
so
1.5 to 1.5 for you.
I find them both so sumptuous in those qualities that we've just mentioned. And again, to me, it's like comparing two meals that are so different, though.
Yeah.
Like they might even be both like protein based, but it's like comparing to me like a great meal of like where the beef is the center versus fish.
Yeah.
Like I'm like they're both great, and yes, they both offer similar nutritional qualities, but like also, damn, they're so different.
Yeah.
Like I just can't put one over the other. So I'm gonna bitch out and give a tie here.
Give it a tie, man.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've got it 2-1 Seven Samurai so far, but if you want to go 1.5 to 1.5, I'm fine with it.
It's a dead heat right now.
Yeah. And so let's round out the conversation with kind of like the everything else category, which we've kind of called effects in the past, but I think that a lot of shit can kind of get wrapped up in there. Once upon a time when we first started the VvV idea, there were 5 categories, and the last one was like the intangibles, the kind of stuff that we haven't covered already. And I feel like that's just turned into the effects category. It's like the effects and everything else. So yeah, whatever you want to lead with, go for it.
I feel like I've kind of sprinkled these in as we've gone, because hearing you speak has brought up some other things to me. I think I'll reiterate just a bit. I feel like the way Seven Samurai ends, I think it nails a little bit more of what it's going for. With the end of Magnificent Seven, I mean, you can feel it, but it feels just a little bit less in place, I guess. They will always lose.
Mm-hmm.
And the ending of Seven Samurai, instead we get that we lost again. This is the win for the farmers.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat that final shot, though, for me, when you see the 4 swords sitting in the graves. In terms of effects, I think costuming, probably have to give it to Magnificent Seven. There's just more going on, you know? And again, granted, the costuming for Seven Samurai is the right one for that film.
Sure.
There's just a bit more to dig on in Magnificent Seven. And again, they use a lot of small things, the way we see like Dexter's outfit. He's got this kind of brown, sort of almost like a sport coat almost, to where we see like our dandy character that has the nightmare and turns out was a deserter. He's got those gloves that he wears, and you get, again, a little bit of a sense, just that those nice little keys to his character there.
Yeah.
And again, when you line them up, it feels a little bit more like the image you see like on an Avengers poster.
Yes.
You can almost guess, oh, that's that guy, that's that guy, that's that guy. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
The way they are visually represented is and again, it kind of lends into that idea. There were some times where some of the samurai I would get mixed up about who was who.
Yeah.
And in Magnificent Seven, you don't have that problem.
Well, they're more distinct, you know? Like I said, that to me overall, I think with the main cast is one of the leading factors for me towards Magnificent Seven. You get a little bit more distinction between them.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's any other real intangibles. I think you could feel this is a weird thing, but it's something I love about Westerns, say from the 50s up to like the 70s. Like, you can just feel what it's like to be there just by the way they look.
Sure.
You know, McQueen in particular, I don't know why, because it's funny because he's kind of probably closer to like one of the pretty boys of the cast.
Sure.
But I feel like I'm sweating and eating beans next to him when I just see him in scenes. That was something I definitely appreciated.
Yeah.
Another intangible, I know this would come up, like, because as you said in the very opening, I mean, obviously Seven Samurai being the predecessor holds the larger card as in terms of influence.
Yes.
I find that a difficult thing to really rank, though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. The one thing I would say, though, is when Magnificent Seven came out, Kurosawa universally approved of and appreciated their take on his original work, and so sent them a sword, like a ceremonial katana, as his way of saying, like, congratulations. And I feel like that's a huge, just like, the guy that made the original went ahead and gave you the nod and said, like, good job. And, like, that's cool, because, you know, you remade his movie. And so at the end of the day, he had to make that movie first for you to be able to make it at all.
See, and it's difficult to say what's the tougher feat there.
Yeah.
Creating the thing that maybe didn't exist before, or following that thing. You know?
Adapting the unadaptable, or what may have been seen as incredibly hard to adapt. I don't know if that... Well, I mean, like, I remember Watchmen was said to be unadaptable.
Which I don't
for
think
example.
I don't think it is completely, but like a series would have been better than a single film.
Agreed. Yeah.
I just mean maybe not unadaptable, because obviously, like, I think Seven Samurai didn't break a mold exactly; it created a mold that we're still going through. That still makes billions of dollars.
Yes.
But like, again, that's why to me sometimes the influence factor is very significant. But to me, it's a little harder to use that as a measuring stick against what it has influenced.
Yeah.
Because like I say, like Psycho took a lot of people by huge surprise, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How could you try to create a moment like what you have in that movie after that?
Yeah.
Did you already burn out those synapses for audiences?
Right.
And so the next person that finds, you know, a very successful version of a knife-wielding Psycho's kind of story, I always like argue, what's the more difficult task here?
Yeah.
The person that created the mold, or the person that found a way to work within the mold similarly successfully, or even greater success than the original?
It's a good point. It is a good point.
Bad news, I don't have an answer.
Yeah. I can say from an aesthetic standpoint, I really like Japan, and I really like the samurai time and like the depictions of it. It always kind of hits a note for me, and Westerns are absolutely a new interest for me, and something that I pretty like vehemently ignored when I was younger. So there is a slight pull for me to lean in that direction, just because I've always liked Japanese aesthetic. You know, I was into anime, and I was into, you know, martial arts films and stuff when I was growing up, and I was into, you know, so there's a lot of Asian culture, maybe not even just Japan, but like there's a pull there just because of some previous you know, preferential treatment that I already gave it. But
well, you know the names of the swords, so you got me on that front. You were throwing that out, and I was like, wow, damn, I didn't know there was that many different versions. I just call them swords.
Yeah. Well, and just like learning about that kind of stuff through other things, like, you know, every samurai carries two swords. They have, you know, usually a traditional katana and then a wakizashi, which is pretty much exclusively used for if they have to perform seppuku, which is when they ritualistically commit suicide if they're dishonored, or if they bring dishonor or something.
That sword is specifically for that?
That's what I understand. I might be completely getting that wrong, but as far as I know, that's why they have it. Yeah, you have the tool for your suicide always on your belt.
It's like when you save one bullet in a battle, you know? Oh no.
Hang on, Code, you're breaking up real bad. I think so. Give me that line again. It's like what? Are you
kind of froze there for a sec too.
Oh, sorry. You said it's kind of like, and then I started losing you. You want to hit me with that again? It's kind of like what?
Oh, I said it's kind of like that. I mean, much more informal tradition where you like save one bullet for yourself.
Right. Like the Jack Sparrow pistol.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's like that bullet's not for you.
Yep.
I don't know. And there's still, like, from like an effects standpoint, like Seven Samurai is bereft of blood. Like there's no I kind of like the way that you described it in terms of the sound effects of like the sword play. Like you don't get to feel it, and there's something about also seeing the blood or seeing the wound that comes with that as well, and you just don't get tons of that in Seven Samurai. Occasionally you'll see like an arrow sticking out of somebody.
True.
But like a lot of the time it's like bandits climbing over fences and they're like poking them in the ass with a bamboo spear. And it's not, you know, it doesn't impart that impact.
Yeah.
Whereas in Mag 7 you're seeing dudes get shot, you're seeing bullet wounds, you're seeing people falling off of horses or out of windows or whatever. Like you get a lot more of that.
Well, there's a bit more emotion in some of those deaths too. Like the death of Charles Bronson's character, like really killed me.
Oh yeah, yeah, that hurt.
Especially because it was the kids were there, and it was partly the distraction they inadvertently caused that like led to his death.
Yeah. It's like Seven Samurai's violence and things like that is very much like a play. Like it's like what you would see in a play.
Yeah.
It's like, we're gonna drag you behind the set dressing over here, and it's implied that we killed you, but we're not actually gonna show that we killed you, really.
Right.
Except for a couple of instances. Like I remember there was one bandit in a trench that was full of water, and he was getting stabbed up by, I believe it was by Kikuchiyo. And you kind of see like that desperation as he's trying to climb out of the trench, and like slowly but surely he kind of loses the energy to move, and then he just kind of sinks down and dies. Like I felt that death, that one was there. But there's a lot of them where it's just like you just don't really get it. Another one though that I almost forgot. Seven Samurai has one really tremendous fire stunt.
Oh yeah. Yep.
When they burned down the bandit camp. And Mag 7 doesn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
That was a huge set piece moment. And they only had one take at that too.
Oh wow.
And they burned the shit out of that building.
That's true.
Like they way overdid it.
Yes. It's an inferno, like when the woman runs back in there.
Yeah. And when Rikichi, whose name just fucking cracked me up, when he runs back to the door to kind of go, because I'm like, Rikichi, he's in the movie.
He did it for The Rock.
He's a bad man. Yeah. And when he kind of goes back up to the doorway, it's like right as part of the roof collapses, and so this big swell of hot air evidently came rushing out the door, and evidently he had severe burns to his esophagus because he breathed in all that hot air.
Ooh,
that sounded fucking horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of fires in the movie because they burned down the mill as well, and like some of the other buildings in the village.
Mm-hmm.
But when they burned down the bandit camp specifically, that was a huge fire that they did on set, and they only had one shot at it. That was one of those ones where like he set up 1 million cameras to make sure he got it.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of balls making that movie.
Yeah. From what I understand, it was a very stressful set.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. And like they ran over budget multiple times, and there was all these threats from the studio that they were going to shut down production, and then Kurosawa would just, from what I read, like he would just leave and go fishing for a while because he knew that the studio was like, we've already invested this much, we need a movie to come out of this. And so he would always take the gamble and be like, they'll come back, and they always did. He was right.
Damn. It's like
something really gangster about that.
Like Churchill during the war, he read like a book a night. The Germans are here. Fuck them.
Yep.
We'll get to them tomorrow, but
they'll be there tomorrow. That's right. And then another thing, and this is kind of more going back to maybe not performance, I don't know, just more of a talking point. Evidently, Yul Brynner was an absolute shithead behind the scenes. Evidently he had this thing with McQueen.
Yeah, him and McQueen had a little bit of a rivalry, I guess, or what Brenner read as a rivalry.
Yeah, I think it all came from him.
Yeah.
Where he was just like, his horse can't be taller than mine. Or, he can't... Like, what the fuck? Evidently he's...
You see the King and I? Yeah, guess who I played? Hint, not I. I don't even know if that came before this.
Evidently, Yul Brynner's like 5'10", and Steve McQueen is 5'9.5" or something like that. So there wasn't enough of a noticeable height difference. So during the scenes where they're having dialogue together and they're on camera at the same time, he would make this little mound of dirt and stand on it to make himself appear taller than Steve McQueen.
Wow.
Like stuff like that. And evidently, like between takes, McQueen would like knock the dirt pile down. Like it's just this like back and forth like playground shit.
I love how petty that is, though. And maybe that just comes with like your image being like, so much of your currency.
Yeah. It's like, this, I'm the star of this picture, see? You know, that kind of shit.
As a fellow smoothhead, I mean, in spite of what I just heard, I'm going to give Yul Brynner some credit for wearing that so early.
Sure.
That's pre-Kojak, baby. Come on. Now, see, and I'd heard it too. The way I read it, though, I didn't know all those Brenner facts. I had just heard that, like there was something like he felt like McQueen was always upstaging him. So I guess this was a little bit more of a Brenner-friendly article. Like, oh, he's always taking more lines and he's adding these little things. And I'm like, maybe he's just trying to do a good job.
Yeah.
And honestly,
like he would do little quirks like touching his hat and stuff during certain scenes, and then he would bitch about it and be like, well, if he keeps touching his hat, how are they ever going to be looking at me when I'm the one on camera too, you know, and that kind of stuff.
Well, here's the thing. McQueen was a bit hungrier at this time, because I just looked it up. The King and I was about 4 years before this. McQueen is mostly a television actor up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was kind of like, this was his breakthrough role. I mean, you know, working with John Sturges really made him, because after this he made The Great Escape with him.
Right.
Which, fuck, I'm glad I didn't yet. I would have forgotten that. It's funny to me that Sturges very knowingly adapted Seven Samurai for this movie, because the Sturges movie that reminds me more of Seven Samurai in some ways is The Great Escape. And I'm going to put a button
which
here.
I haven't seen.
I am so... Oh, dude. I'm going to put my button here and give my award. If you have anything else, I want to keep talking with you, because, I mean, hell, we're just already going on about the actors. But being reminded of that, I think the ultimate factor, and this is more of an intangible, to me, is just that cumulative effect, you know? Getting into Seven Samurai, I did a little bit like I opened the show, where I was already kind of humming the theme, watched it, loved it, turned it off, and just kind of moved on, you know?
Yeah.
Enjoyed that time front to back. Was happy to recount some of what I remember with you right now. But finishing Seven Samurai just earlier, like, that theme just stuck with me for the next few hours.
Yeah.
And I could feel a lot, you know? Like, so again, I think cumulative effect, I'll call it, for my intangible is going to be the deciding factor. This will be the last hook of the fight. Yeah. And it was a close one. But down went Ali. So I'm giving it to Seven Samurai. Okay. Yeah.
So your intangible point. So you end up in this place where it's kind of like a 2.5 to 1.5 almost.
And so let me further explain. The Great Escape shares that. I realize I didn't explain that. But yeah, The Great Escape is also about a 3+ hour movie, but it earns it. You get so much build and really effort. That's what it comes down to. That final sequence, I mean, just feels incredible. Like, I'm right there with those characters, and that's what I felt watching this battle in the rain earlier.
Yeah. And I think ultimately the set pieces, the moments, the memorable stuff, the huge fire stunt was awesome. I think a lot of the intangibles that I took away is more memorable to me coming from Seven Samurai. And so I think it also gets that point for me, which, doing the math, that ends up being a 3-1 quote unquote victory for Seven Samurai. But I'm going to take an odd angle with it and say, if I were to recommend, though, I would almost say watch Magnificent Seven if you only can do one or the other. And the only reason I say that is because Seven Samurai is such an undertaking of time, and Magnificent Seven tells you a great story. It just does it more efficiently. It does it more quickly. And you'll love the seven, like the titular 7 characters. You'll love the villain. And there's a lot of great stuff in there. But the true version of that story, I do think, comes from Seven Samurai, and you get a lot of, as you said, I think the tone or the overall theme of today's episode for me is depth, and you're the one that brought it up. Seven Samurai is deeper. It's where the depth comes from, and I feel like Magnificent Seven took the more shallow route, but still very, very faithful, very entertaining, and very well made shallow route.
I wouldn't even go so far as to call it shallow, but I mean, I'd say maybe...
I think I'm more just failing to come up with other vocabulary.
Sure. No, I wasn't going to do much better. I was going to say less deep.
Still deep, just less so.
But no, I hear what you're saying. That was something I thought about earlier today too. Like, if I were to recommend one or the other, if somebody hadn't seen either, I would start them definitely with Magnificent Seven. It's for the same reason.
Yeah, it's more approachable.
You don't start people on Shakespeare. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it's more approachable. I think it's easier to kind of jump on and get into. There's so many hurdles with Seven Samurai. It's subtitled and in Japanese. A lot of people, we've talked about that till we're blue in the fucking face on this show. A lot of people won't watch movies if it's not in English. That's strike one. It's in black and white. A lot of people won't watch movies if they're not in color. It's
old.
There's so many hurdles. It's old. It's long.
Yeah.
It's not in English.
Yeah. You can't hear the swords when they hit people. Fuck.
Fucking swords don't make noise. It's. But it's also a beautiful film and an incredibly well shot film. But if you're not going to have the time or the wherewithal to appreciate those things, then yeah, you should probably watch the Magnificent Seven version of it, which is more fun to look at, I guess, from a less deep standpoint.
Sure. Well, and again, for we've danced around it off and on throughout the thing. Seven Samurai did ultimately create this. I mean, according to people that know more than I do, created both the team up and the quote unquote dudes on a mission movie. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I owe it a lot just for that. Yeah. And again, it's hard to say that, say, if Magnificent Seven hadn't come and within a few years on the heel of it to a whole different audience, that it wouldn't necessarily carried through that influence. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, for better or worse, we wouldn't necessarily have Ocean's movies and, Fast and Furious and a lot of the Marvel films. Hell, we might not even have, quite a few Tarantino movies, or at least not in the form they came through. Yeah.
I know he was heavily influenced by, this period of time and these films and the films inspired by this film. And
well, that was his quote, and it's one of his favorite, pseudo subgenres is dudes on a mission. So.
Yeah.
Hey, we might not have got Inglourious Bastards, which is one of my favorites of his.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Josh's take just very quickly. He didn't really have the opportunity to write much, but he just said that he has Seven Samurai over Magnificent Seven in every aspect except effects. So our last category he actually gave to Magnificent Seven. He said that that's not to say it's bad. I quite enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed Seven Samurai. For him, it was a 10 out of 10 film. And so, without knowing how he broke each criteria down more specifically, it sounds like he did a 3-1, which is the same score I did, but the only difference being I gave Magnificent Seven the point in characters and performance. But yeah, overall, I think Seven Samurai is the winner here. It's such a hard distinction to make.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that in mind, that's all I really. I mean, we could obviously talk about 6 hours worth of film forever, but that's really all I really had to bring to the table. Unless we're missing something for you.
Nope, not at all. I was going to say, last thing I have to say, really, anybody listening, if you haven't seen either, watch both. Watch either. Honestly, you can't go wrong with either of these movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're in for an entertaining and well-made film either way. And with that in mind, thanks a bunch for hanging with us again for another week of SSP. These VvVs and doing these episodes, watching these films and doing the research is a lot of fun. But it's a lot of work too. So we appreciate you coming in and kind of checking out the outcome of that work. So please reach out to us on X at Screen Sermon or on Facebook. You can also leave comments here on this YouTube video. Like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. And of course, you could always email us at screensermonpod@gmail.com. on any of those platforms I just mentioned. We're looking for feedback. We're looking for recommendations. We're looking for suggestions about what to watch, how to watch it, how to cover it, how to do this, that, and the other. We're open to it. We were doing some of that in the early days where we were getting recommendations about Indian films to watch. We ended up watching both of the Bahubali films. We'll listen. You just got to let us know what it is you want to hear us cover. Continue to support Tubi TV. We will continue to sing that to the hills. I watched The Magnificent Seven for this week's episode on Tubi TV. So, support their platform. It's really great free service that they provide, as long as you have an internet connection and a device that it works on. So Tubi's great, and we will continue to talk about Tubi forever, and maybe one day we'll actually collaborate with them. That would be so cool. So with that in mind, folks, I think that's all we've got. And have a happy Thanksgiving if that's something that you celebrate or are into. If not, just have a great week, and we will have more content for you next week as well. Yes, sir.
One last shout out, if I may. I know I'd mentioned him on a previous episode, but one of my other film godfathers, Kelly Josh, has his own show now. So go out and check Talk Sick. That's 2 words. Talk Sick Cinema. Also available on Spotify. That's where I listen to it.
Talk Sick Cinema.
Yeah.
On Spotify.
Yeah.
Got it. And I'm going to go find that myself. Okay.
Or I'm going to call it a rival sister show. And one we may have to maybe do like a little bit of crossover with at some point.
Absolutely. Is it like a bitchy older sister? Like he's been doing it longer and so like holds it over our head?
That'd be kind of us, honestly. Yeah. As far as podcasting goes. We've got a whole 7 months on them.
Got it. Okay. All right, folks. Well, we'll let you go for this week. And Inky, thanks a bunch for being with me as always, and for all your hard work on, diving into these things with me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, man.
Not a problem. Hey, and Josh, as you're listening to this, get better soon, and we'll see you back on the show. Have a great week, everybody.